What's going on, everybody? My name is Derailious. Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be going over the meta in Hypixel Skyblock and how it has really changed over the last few months, and how I think it will continue to change in the near and far future. But before we get into that, I want to say thank you guys for all the support recently, as we're about to hit 16,000 subscribers, and I wanted to say only a small percentage of those who watch my videos are actually subscribed. So if you could hit that button down below, it really does mean a ton. On that note though, let's get right into the video. In order to properly talk about how the Skyblock meta has changed, we have to talk about how it was remaining the same prior to these changes. And, honestly, a lot of the items you would use inside of dungeons had a lot of viability outside of dungeons as well. Look no further than things like Bone Meringue or Hyperion, which are basically able to one-shot any mob outside of dungeons, and although you wouldn't necessarily use a Hyperion on dragons because of ghost damage, had viability in every single other piece of content as well. And on top of this, a lot of bows had a lot of viability outside of dungeons as well. Things like a death bow were amazing outside of dungeons, and magma bows were likely even better. On top of this, there wasn't too much variance in the weapons used. Although many mid-game players would opt to use a Flower of Truth or a Livid Dagger when fighting most bosses, because let's be real, having a melee weapon is nice, there wasn't really the amount of niche items that we have currently, and seem to be getting on a weekly and monthly basis. A lot of times you would just use one weapon for pretty much all the content. You wouldn't necessarily focus on swapping around for a whole bunch of things. At least that's what I did, and that's what a lot of other people I know did. They would use, for instance, a Supermax Flower of Truth for pretty much every Slayer boss, and wouldn't really bother grinding out multiple different sets to fight those bosses. All the armor was mostly the same as well. If you had Necron outside of dungeons, you were basically the best Berserker alive, and if you had Storm outside of dungeons, you were basically the best Mage alive. It was really no contest. Those were the best, and that's what you had to use. And if you didn't, you'd be at a severe disadvantage. In terms of pets, there wasn't too much variance as well. If you had a Baby Yeti, you would use that. If you have a Blue Whale, you'd use that. And, by extension, if you had a Griffin pet that was supermaxed, you would use that. There wasn't too much variance in this category as well, and it's all starting to change because of a few new updates that have come out recently. When talking about meta changes in Hypixel Skyblock, we first have to talk about the updates which have brought those changes and the bosses which have incited them. Notably, Arachne, the spider boss, is part of the Bestiary update, and the Atoned Horror, the Revenant Horror Tier 5 boss, as part of the Bartender's Brewery. Both of these bosses have complete and total immunity to not just magic damage, but bow damage as well. And considering that 90% of the previous meta was composed of magical weaponry and bows, that would pose a problem for pretty much everybody talking about the meta. Over the past few weeks, we've seen some pretty insane things when it comes to the meta. Not only have Phantom Rods taken over and basically become the premier weapon when fighting the Arachne boss, but you basically are unable to do Rev Tier 5 without having a decent set of Reaper armor, an entirely new set of armor which not only allows you to completely dominate Rev Tier 5, but basically is the best overall set for dealing with zombies. On top of this, we've been seeing a lot of new weaponry and other armor pieces which are incredibly strong. The Warden Helmet, for instance, which has a perk that generally allows you to have your speed but double your damage, is one of the strongest overall items introduced into the game ever, and I could see it becoming the best overall helmet in the game. On top of this, we have the new axe, the Axe of the Shredded, which was so strong on release that it was able to one-shot Necron. Although that ability has been removed, it remains viable both inside and outside of dungeons, which is one of the few weapons introduced in the game, not originally a dungeon item, which is able to be viable inside of dungeons, which is truly insane. Essentially, the general point that I'm trying to make here is that we're no longer in a one-size-fits-all meta. The items that we are going to be using over the next few weeks and months are going to be different than the items we would use inside dungeons normally. And this is a relatively new concept. For a lot of Skyblock's history, or at least the history with dungeons as part of the game, all of the content has involved the players using the same overall weapons with little variance. The meta was simply the best dungeon item, and that's it. Although that's seemingly starting to change, and I'm excited for it. I'm really happy to see them experimenting with new builds, new items, new weapons. The idea that a rod is one of the best items to fight a boss with, that's pretty new information, and honestly I'm pretty happy about it. Overall though, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I hope you enjoyed hearing me out and talking about the meta and builds in this game, And over the next few weeks, I'm definitely going to be trying to improve the quality of my content a ton. Obviously, this, YouTube thing, I've never really taken it super seriously, because once again, I'm still a kid in school. But I have more free time now, and because of that, I'm able to dedicate more time to improving my YouTube channel, and that's what I want to do. So expect to see a lot better quality videos over the next few weeks and months. On that note though, thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to hit that like and subscribe button down below if you are new, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace out, everybody.